Hey, stop that cat. Man down. Errol Spence Jr., he's riding with his fighter, Frank Martin. He said he ain't trying to hear it. So let me take it back. Leonard Ellerbe, he posted this. He's working with Tank Davis. Somebody says Errol Spence gives his prediction for Tank versus Frank Martin. Leonard Ellerbe responded to this, where he's backing his guy, of course. And he says, LOL, Frank Martin, he's a very good fighter, but man, Frank ain't dominating ish. If they think Tank gonna give rounds away, they crazy. Every fight/opponent is a different approach. One thing for sure, he's never faced anything like what he's about to see June 15th. I can't effing wait till next Saturday. Right? So this is what Leonard Ellerbe is saying, who's fully backing his fighter that he works with, Tank Davis. Errol Spence clearly seen this and wasn't feeling it. He says, man, I'm not trying to hear that ish. What you saying is vice versa. Gervonta Davis never faced what he is going to face on June 15th either. Man, things are definitely starting to get chippy in the sport of boxing. So you got two teams that are being pitted against each other. Team Frank Martin and Team Gervonta Davis. Of course, Leonard Ellerbe is going to rock with his guy. And of course, Errol Spence, man down promotion, stop that cat. Definitely, yes, definitely. He's going to rock with Frank Martin. And this is what happens. Tempers flare usually as we get closer to the fight. Before, we were able to see Frank Martin and Gervonta Davis on Gillian Wallow's podcast and taking pictures next to each other. That was just at the press conference, and then they set that up. But as you get closer to the fight and people made all the sacrifices they made, had a grueling, tough camp, sometimes away from their family, not getting to eat the foods that they want to eat because they're in training camp, that's where you see the demeanor start to change and mood start to change. And pretty much a week and a half out till the fight, that's what we're seeing here.
Camp to prepare for so far throughout your career?
Really, camp ain't really tough unless you make camp tough. You know what I mean? Like far as focus and all that. But I would say my last fight was probably a tough camp for me just because I wasn't all the way as focused as I needed to be.
We got another one coming on from Migo Bucks. He said, Frank, do you plan on moving up to 140 anytime soon? We see a lot of guys right now moving up to 140. Is that in the future for you?
Eventually, yeah. I'm setting all the smoke at 140. Everybody done went to 140 now, so eventually, yeah, I'll probably go up to 140. But I wanna get some, give me some shots at 135 first, and then, kind of focus on 140. But right now, we're gonna chill at 135 until I make a little noise, make some noise at 135.
We got another question from Mr. AOB. Frank, would you fight Shakur if you win Saturday?
Yeah. I'll fight anybody at 135.
Shit. When he win, it's got to be a rematch. So Shakur got to wait.
Okay, so Frank, if you win, there potentially could be a rematch between you and Tank.
Yeah, it's a rematch for sure.
Okay. All right, so you heard it here first.
Man, I cannot wait for this upcoming fight, Tank versus Frank. This is going to be a good one. I've even compared this particular fight. In my opinion, it reminds me of Floyd versus Zab Judah of this generation, despite both fighters being southpaws. So definitely looking forward to this one. It should be a great occurrence. Frank Martin is dialed in. He looks like he's in terrific shape. Tank Davis is looking like maybe he's at one of his best camps. He looks super sliced, lighter than normal. So maybe he's going for speed. And it should overall just be what everyone's looking forward to. Great card. David Benavidez, a lot of names on the card that you should recognize. Let's get it. The other thing he talked about was Frank Martin was asked about, basically, there was a Q&A section with the fans that you guys heard. He was asked about a potential fight with Shakur Stevenson, and Errol Spence jumps in and says Shakur would have to wait because if and when, because Errol Spence says Frank Martin he will end up beating Tank Davis, but if that happens, Errol Spence said pump your brakes on the Shakur Stevenson talk because there's a rematch clause here. Now, I talk about this. Some people get mad at rematch clauses and rehydration clauses, but depending on the situation, they make a lot of sense. You look at Devin Haney, his team arrogantly went into a Ryan Garcia fight, knowing Ryan was doing all these antics. At some point, they didn't have these safeguards in place, no rehydration clause. There was no rematch clause. I bet you believe now that they wish they had that stuff. So like a rematch clause, I don't have a problem with it when it's the face of boxing like a Tank Davis, because it's just an additional safeguard. It's not, oh, you're scared or this and that. It's in the event that you're able to beat me, you can't move on without seeing me again. That's what that means. And I think that's fair because you have to understand the A side is always typically risking more because the A side is the one who is the bigger name and the bigger draw. So every time they step foot, like when you got the Floyd Mayweathers and the Tank Davises, every single time they step foot in there, at the end of the day, fighters like that, they're risking more because if they were to lose, they lose like almost everything. Like you're the high profile person. So it's already going to be amplified. Like, oh my God, it's going to be more shocking. Like if there was let's say in boxing, there was a journeyman and a journeyman lose, who cares? Like, this happens all the time. So if someone's a massive underdog, it's not shocking. But when you see somebody who's undefeated, like Tyson Fury, and it's not shocking to me, but I know some people looked at that fight as like, wow, I didn't think Tyson Fury would lose being the bigger person and, things like that. So I'm not mad at the rematch clause. Shakur Stevenson, I don't know what he's going to do. He has to get past Frank Martin leftovers, Artem Harutyunyan, and then I guess we'll see what's at the table for him. But Shakur, he's badmouthed Frank Martin, said he's not elite, asked why Tank is not fighting his leftovers, which makes no sense, which I've already talked about, Edwin De Los Santos. Meanwhile, this is scaled for approximately a $14 million gate, and everybody's hyped for the fight next week. So it doesn't look good for Shakur. You're not going to get a crack at Tank or really a Frank Martin because they're going to be occupied if there is an upset. And then if Tank wins, then you have to be selected by Tank to get that shot anyway. So we'll see how it all plays out. Subscribe.